The dream of Mars. It's a guiding principle of the 4 billion inhabitants of Mars and an ideal that is fervently woven throughout their society to unite them in a common goal to strive for. Hi, Rick here with another Index video, and this time we're looking at the Martian Congressional Republic of the Expanse. Like with the Belters and the United Nations of Earth, the MCR is an extension of our own cultures, languages and history adapted into the 24th century show, and because of this there are a multitude of different individuals that make up the society. This video is simply talking about the science fiction setting and the relevant lore of Mars, and there will also be spoilers ahead concerning the sweeping changes to the solar system that take place throughout the shows where necessary. With that out of the way, let's get started. The colonisation of Mars took place in the century following the first landings in 2035, and by the mid-22nd century, Mars was inhabited by over 100 million people. The settlements were of two major varieties, one being the underground shelters built deep into the red planet's crust that shielded the inhabitants from the unfiltered radiation and dust storms. The other settlements were domed cities that were constructed on the surface. These cities were connected by both an underground tunnel train network and the overground cable cars. The ultimate goal for Mars, however, was complete terraforming, so that the planet would eventually be as habitable as Earth, albeit with lower gravity. At this time, the settlements were effectively an extension of Earth and developed as such, but the newer generation of humans born there began to see themselves as Martian, not Earthers. As Mars developed its own maintained agriculture and the promise of terraforming began to look attainable, even if it was a faraway goal, the colony world became less dependent on resources from Earth, and soon its inhabitants felt disconnected from the United Nations of Earth and calls for independence began. These calls were not heeded, and either placated with diplomatic pressure or occasionally a show of force from the UN until the invention of the Epstein drive in 129 BXT. The native Martian effectively created a way to speed up interplanetary travel, and although he perished in the test flight, his designs were passed to the government of Mars, which then bartered this for independence. The UN accepted the deal, and Mars reformed its government into the Mars Congressional Republic. At the head of Mars is the Prime Minister, and they founded their own currency, the MCR dollar or Martian dollar. This also meant that the terraforming of Mars was no longer overseen by Earth too, and it was down to the red planet's settlers to continue the project, which they took to with a determination that would shape their culture. The harsh way of living was coupled with the ideal of working together on the largest engineering project that Sol had ever seen, and the terraforming of Mars became the driving force behind the planet. However, there were other areas that required funding. Alongside this massive undertaking, the MCR founded its own military in opposition to the UN's massive force, and while smaller, the MCRN, their navy, is often far more technologically capable and disciplined. The capital city of Mars is Londres Nova, while their primary military base is the Hecate base on Olympus Mons. Alongside its numerous ground settlements, Mars also maintains its own habitations beyond its atmosphere, with installations in the asteroid belt and on several Jovian moons, like the Callisto shipyards, which sits right next door to the UN civilian shipyard. Most of the settlements beyond Mars, however, are not for civilian use, with the majority of its economy focused on the terraforming project. This leaves its outside presence as mostly the MCRN's affair, but alongside this is Mars's scouring of the belt for resources. Those that settled the belt from Mars and Earth to eventually develop their own culture known as Belters, the subject of another Index video. Resources from the belt, such as all of Ceres's local water, was diverted towards Mars to aid in its terraforming project, something that over time repeated the cycle of subjugation, but this time with Mars being the oppressive force alongside Earth, and the Belters being the oppressed. It's impossible to talk about Mars and not mention their military prowess, with that not only being a focus of the shows and the books, but also a focus of Mars itself. Their strong unity, ruthlessness and dedication to the dream of Mars is perfect for cultivating a militant mindset. In addition to this, their focal goal is one of the largest scientific and engineering problems that will take centuries to complete. This in turn means that innovation is aplenty on Mars, and they most definitely have the edge when it comes to tech across numerous fields. The MCRN ships are the most advanced in the system, with a wide array of classes, each generation of ships incorporating newer and more capable changes, iterating on their success. The most famous classes of Martian vessel are the almost 500 metre long Donnager-class battleships and the Corvette-class light frigate, although the latter's renown is more likely due to the achievements of the independent Rocinante. Their ships are crewed by the MMC, the Martian Marine Corps, which itself is broken down into further divisions. However, even the standard MMC body armour is more advanced than the UN's equivalent, with the onboard computers regulating vitals and performing a myriad of other duties. Standard armour can perform DNA scans through sensors in the fingertips and has holographic computers with displays. They possess emergency thrusters for microgravity manoeuvres and blood filters built in that can allow for a wearer to push themselves further by reducing toxin buildups. Alongside the infantry, there is the marine armour, which operated combat mechs, automated battle units seen in the books, and the infamous Force Recon Marines. These specialists operate in Goliath Power Armour, a full suit of motorised armour that provides the wearer with enhanced strength and capabilities, requiring specialised training to operate. This armour is downright impenetrable to most small arms fire, as firearms in the Expanse are generally limited to not able to be able to pierce a ship's hull to avoid accidental decompression in a firefight. The Goliath Power Armour looks at that self-imposed limitation and says, "Really? Well then." Alongside this, the Martians have numerous other developments with their computing systems, being some of the best. A wide array of medical advancements, both in the civilian sector and military use, such as focus drugs being used by the latter to temporarily increase the attention, memory and observational skills of those who ingested it. They are also known for producing some of the best stealth technology, in a myriad of forms, from ships utilising cooling systems to hide their emissions, to sheets of black composite and a quick apply spray that scatters radar. All of these developments are highly coveted by anyone who can get their hands on them, but fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on where you stand, such technology is kept in check by the dedication to place Mars first, above all other concerns. The idea of selling out Mars for a Martian is pretty much unheard of, thanks to the deep-rooted patriotism and inbred pride at having achieved so much. Mars has gone from being a colony to Earth to being a technically smaller but comparative power to the thousands of years of human history found on Earth through their diligence, perseverance and efficiency. But all that is threatened. Those born in the domed cities or underground on Mars are less driven to terraform the planet because they are used to the life they have now and have never seen Earth, an ocean or a breathable sky. The dream of Mars to many is no longer a second independent Earth. While the UN and Mars have been engaged in a Cold War for years, the biggest threat to Mars was not the rival superpower, but the loss of its unifying ideal. This was exacerbated when the ring worlds were colonised, due to the ease of settling these other habitable worlds. Why terraform Mars anymore when there are a myriad of other planets, already with breathable atmospheres, where the expertise of the Martian people would allow them to thrive? This has led to the defection of a third of the MCRN under the command of Admiral Winston Durati, and may spell the end of the dream. That about covers the Mars Congressional Republic. Their way of life is tougher than that of those on Earth, but they have all the resources they require to survive, and when compared to life on the Belt, well, they have downright luxury. So, thanks for watching this video on them, and I'll probably cover the Geonosians next up, because there was also a lot of interest expressed in there too. So, thanks again for watching. I've been Rick, and goodbye.